Hey guys, what's up? Let me just adjust this real quick here. Alright, yeah, that works for me. I'm here with a fucking huge collection update. Mainly because this is stuff I've acquired since literally New Year's Eve. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to get a couple specific items that were gifts from friends that they just weren't able to get out to me until recently. So, and I wanted to wait for these few things to get to me before I did this update, and before I knew it, it was a month and a half later, and I'm sitting on even more stuff than I expected to have by that time. So, let me just start with the first stack here. This isn't really in any particular order, but some of this stuff I bought with a little bit of my tax return. Some of it is just random stuff I bought because it was cheap or I was interested and I couldn't resist it. First thing is just something I randomly bought because it was kind of cheap. It's a Vic Campbell double feature from the Spanish cult filmmaker Vic Campbell. His film Gravedigger and Tales from Beyond the Grave from Massacre Video. With this title specifically in my collection now, I have almost every single title in the Massacre DVD catalog except for Snuff 102, Voyage to a Gates, Demon Queen, and I think I'm forgetting one more, Alien Beasts, and I think I might be forgetting one more on top of that. But, yeah, with this, I own almost the entire Massacre catalog, so that's just great. I'm going to get this back on the shelf here, so I'm going to put it on there later. That works for me. There's another one. This is one that I bought with my tax return money. This one I mainly bought because it was fairly cheap, and it's from a director I like. Shion Sono's hair extensions, also known as X-Day. When I heard about Shion Sono doing a... Now, I love Shion Sono. He's probably one of my favorite Japanese directors, next to Takashi Miike and, like, Oshima Nagisa. And when I heard he made a kind of, a supernatural horror film in the style of something like The Ring and The Grudge and One Missed Call, I was fairly interested, because I know he likes to put unique twists on his movies. He likes to do something a little different. And this was $5 for like this 2-disc special edition, which is not bad. And upon watching this film, I realized that this is supposed to be, obviously, a parody of those kinds of movies. A parody of sorts of the kind of traditional Japanese supernatural horror that was very popular when this film was made. And this film is kind of a body horror film also. It's essentially about hair extensions that are coming from a dead woman, and the hair extensions kill people. And it's actually a lot more gruesome and hard to watch and, like, cringe-inducing than you would think for a film about murderous hair extensions. Again, let me put this on the shelf over here. Next we got the James Bell film, Tantrum 2, Phantom of the Demon. This one I mainly bought because this was one of the only films from last year that I had yet to see, and that I knew would most likely make my list of best of the year. And this is his sequel to probably his most famous movie, Tantrum, which is probably his masterpiece so far. I really like James Bell's films. I think he's a pretty interesting filmmaker, despite the technical shortcomings and the films being a little cheesy. I still think their atmosphere is pretty good, and they're like basically just crazy art house gore films. And they don't run for too long. Like, the longest they run is like 40 minutes, which is not bad at all. And this is just the regular edition, but it's signed on the back. When I bought it off eBay, they signed it, which, that's cool. I didn't even ask to have it signed, but, you know, that's James for you. He's a very nice guy. I've met him at conventions a few times and had a couple conversations with him. These next two are ones I bought because they were fairly cheap. These were like $1.50 a piece. The Sacrament, which is a Thai West film. This is essentially Jonestown Massacre, the found footage horror film version. Some people don't like this one, and I can get why you wouldn't like it. It's definitely not a movie for everybody, and it's definitely nothing absolutely, like, 10 out of 10 amazing. But I actually really like this film. I think it's kind of creepy. I think it's interesting for what it is, and I think Ty West is doing a pretty decent job with what he's doing currently. Next we have Seed, which this is a Uwe Boll film. Not a very big fan of Uwe Boll. Not many people are fans of Uwe Boll. But I like Postal. I like his film adaptation of Postal. And I had always heard this was like another one of his films that's bad, but it's a pretty interesting one. And it's apparently this very crazy, violent, disturbing slasher flick that I've yet to actually watch. And I've had this for like a month. Let's see, on to the next stack. Actually, I should pair this with the one VHS tape in this update. My friend Ryan got me a Christmas present, and he got me The Holy Mountain on Blu-ray, which is one of my favorite movies. Probably one of my, definitely like my second favorite Jodorowsky film behind Scent of Sangre. I really like The Holy Mountain. This film is a legit masterpiece, and he got me this as like a legit Christmas gift because he knows I love this movie. He knows that I love that movie. But then, as a joke, he went to a fucking Goodwill and got me Cat in the Hat on VHS for 50 cents because we watched that movie all together because we were like, hey, let's watch something terrible. And two of my friends, Ryan and Tristan, they were like, let's watch The Cat in the Hat. And I'm like, fuck's sake. So they legitimately bought me this on VHS, which is upsetting. This is something I bought, Love Exposure on Blu-ray. Shion Sono's Love Exposure, probably his best film. I watched this for the first time in, like, December. This is a 4-hour-long comedy, drama, action, epic film shot on digital video. And it is one of my, it is quickly becoming one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, definitely in my top 100 favorites. And I just, like a couple weeks ago, had a few hours to spare, and I rewatched it again. And upon rewatching it, I definitely think definitely I enjoyed it just as much the second time around. And I actually thought it was a lot smarter, and there are interesting themes that I noticed in the film the second time watching. Stuff about artistry and whether or not certain things can be art depending on the effort you put into them. Similar to the film itself, the film is a 4.5-hour long movie, not 4.5, but a 4-hour long comedy, drama, romance, action film about a love triangle forming between a Catholic upskirt photographer, a woman who hates all men, and a cult leader. And you would think, and this is a wacky Japanese comedy, and you wouldn't think that this is like some kind of complicated, film that deals with serious themes, but it actually does, which is surprising. This one's a gift from Andrew, my good friend Andrew. This was his Christmas gift to me. It's Satan's Blade on Blu-ray, which he says this is a shot-on-video film, but from all research I've done, apparently this one was shot on 35mm, but according to Andrew, it was a shot-on-video film, and he even sent me it through Amazon, and he had a gift wrap. It says, here's your gift, you greasy son of a gun. Hope you enjoy it in all of its glorious shot-on-video glory, and have a great year. I watched Satan's Blade, and it's pretty bad, but I appreciate the gift, because, despite it being a bad movie, it's a gift, and it's something nice. It's a movie I was interested in. This one's another one I bought for myself, because this was, like, my favorite movie from last year. The Killing of a Sacred Deer from Yorgos Lanthimos. I'm going to try and not dwell on this one too much, because this one's getting a lot of hate for being an absurdist black comedy, because that's exactly what it is. And there are a lot of people who are complaining, like, oh, it doesn't make sense. Well, it's an absurdist film. It's not necessarily supposed to make a lot of sense. But I adore The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's very much a film that has a hard-on for Kubrick on a technical level. It is very much a film that you can tell is heavily inspired by Stanley Kubrick. And who doesn't want to be inspired by Stanley Kubrick? He's one of the greats. Forbidden Zone, Danny Elfman's Forbidden Zone. Not Danny Elfman, Richard Elfman's Forbidden Zone, but it features Danny Elfman in the cast. This film kind of went just completely under the radar when it was made and when it came out, and it was shot in black and white. And this contains the black and white and color version. I kind of like the color version more. It makes the film a lot more visually interesting and zany to watch. But it's been called like the Citizen Kane of underground films, and this is like a weird fantasy comedy musical horror film about people finding a doorway to the sixth dimension in their basement, and they go in it, and it has Tattoo from Fantasy Island as the king, and Danny Elfman as in the composer and lead singer of the pop group Oingo Boingo as Satan, and he's probably the best thing in the entire movie. I got Flesh for Frankenstein, the Australian Blu-ray. I had to import this because this is not on Blu-ray in the U.S., but this is region free, so I'm very happy about that. This is probably this is probably my favorite adaptation of Frankenstein. Honestly, like the classic, Boris Karloff Frankenstein is still like the best. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still the best adaptation, but this is probably my personal favorite adaptation of Frankenstein. It's this weird, crazy, kind of gross out art house splatter comedy version of Frankenstein with a lot of sex and nudity and necrophilia and weird, wacky gore. Also, a hilariously awful performance from Udo Kier, as always. Wait, that's the music. Don't want to get into that yet. These are some of the more recent things. I pre-ordered the Blu-ray of Night of the Living Dead from Criterion, and this is an absolutely beautiful release, although I want to complain because I ordered this through Amazon, and I thought their packaging, they would do a better job with the packaging, but look, it's not too clear, but look at that corner. The corner has some serious wear on it to where it looks like I've had this for years, and I've only had this for a couple weeks. But I watched this one again. I hadn't watched Night of the Living Dead in years, and I watched it again on this restored 4K version. And I watched, a few scenes of the film on my phone as I was watching this new Blu-ray, comparing the, public domain, common kind of version of the film with this new restoration, and this new restoration is beautiful. This film also features the original work print version of the film, Night of Anubis, which I didn't even know there was a work print version of Night of the Living Dead, which makes me happy that it exists, because I really, really, really like... I really like Night of the Living Dead. So I'm going to have to watch that work print version eventually. But, I would also just like to say, rest in peace, George Romero. He was one of my favorite directors. I have a fucking framed 80s reprint of the Dawn of the Dead poster hanging right there. And Criterion had like a quick little sale going on, so I had to hit that up because I hate my life and I can't control my spending habits at all, and that's terrible. But I got a few titles that I was interested in. Only one of these movies I've actually seen. The rest are films I've never seen before. One of them being a film that I'm sure I will really enjoy because it's from a specific director and because it's a film that's been recommended to me many times. But the one film I did buy that is a film I've seen before is Roman Polanski's Repulsion. I'm not going to get into the controversy surrounding Roman Polanski. I will say before that specific incident in the late 70s, any film he made before that I will give him credit for. Any film he made after that, he does not deserve shit from me for. That being said, I think Repulsion is a very good movie. I think it's one of the best psychological horror films ever made. And it's a really great movie. This film and like Rosemary's Baby are like the two films from Roman Polanski that I cannot deny the beauty of. I think Rosemary's Baby is definitely less rough around the edges and less exploitive, I guess, in its nature, and less kind of low budget, definitely. But this film is one of, I think this is like Polanski's second film he ever made, which I really like. Repulsion. I got Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, which was remade in the U.S. Not remade in the U.S., but it was remade by Sergio Leone as A Fistful of Dollars, which is a pretty good Western. I like that one. One of my favorite Westerns of all time is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I saw Seven Samurai, and I really loved Seven Samurai, so... God damn it. So I figured, why not pick up, you know, another one of his samurai-ish films that I hear is very good. And let me grab these other two. And I also got, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the actual title of this film, so I'm going to go with the original title, which is Chidan. This is a film, this is another one I've never seen before, but it's apparently a 3-hour-long Japanese Edo period piece samurai ghost story anthology based on Japanese folklore. When I heard that there was a 3-hour-long, you know, horror anthology from Japan from the, like, what is it, 64, I think? 65, from the mid-60s, that had crazy, surreal sets, and it was pretty ahead of its time with some of its, you know, lighting and camera work and cinematography, set design, and stuff like that. When I heard this, there was this crazy, surreal, kind of 3-hour-long anthology film from Japan, I had to jump on it, and for $15, I couldn't say no. And this one I got Shikoku, also known as The Sinners of Hell. This is another one from, this is like the legend, this is one of those legendary films from, this is one of those legendary, like, 60s Japanese horror films. Essentially about a guy who commits a hit and run, and he eventually starts to slowly slip into madness, and he eventually goes to hell. And that's what the whole film is about. And from what I've heard, the ending to this movie is, like, absolutely insane. Not really, probably not by today's standards, but I hear it's pretty, but for the time, it was really out there. You know, which makes me interested in seeing it, you know. I'm interested. I like, you know, Japanese horror. And I'm really getting into, early Japanese kind of exploitation and horror stuff. I'm really into, like, Oshima Nagisa's films. Finally, the last Blu-ray is the last one I was waiting on. Gift from my friend Damon, his Christmas present to me. He got me the Greasy Strangler on Blu-ray, which, this has the fucking audio commentary track from the director, and, this stars, Michael St. Michaels and Sky Elbar. I'm interested in watching this with audio commentary, because I really like the Greasy Strangler. This is one of my favorite movies from 2016. But I want to watch this with the audio commentary, because I want to know what was going through the director's head when he thought to himself, let's make this movie. Like, let's make this a movie. Because this movie is absolutely fucking gross and weird. As for music, I bought a CD and a vinyl recently. I bought the Death album Symbolic. Those of you who don't know, I'm pretty big into metal and punk rock music. And this is like, I really like the band Death, and one of my favorite Death albums is Spiritual Healing, and this is often considered to be their best album, Symbolic, which I bought this over a month ago. I have yet to actually listen to this, and I've had it for over a month now, you know. So I really need to get on that, because I really like Death as a band, and when I hear that this is their best album, I really want to give it a listen, but I still have not gotten around to it. The one vinyl I bought was a fairly cheap one that I found for like $14 on Amazon, and I figured, why the hell not? It's the Dead Kennedys Plastic Surgery Disasters. This is like the Dead Kennedys. I think I don't want to sit here and say this is like their second album. I think this might actually be their second album after Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, which I own on CD. This album particularly is not my favorite Dead Kennedys record. My favorite would probably have to be Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. You know, that one had the classic California Uber Alice on it, which is just, you know, that one's just amazing. But it also had Too Drunk to Fuck, it had Police Truck, it had Kinky Sex Makes the World Go Round, it had Pull My Strings. I'm a little upset, though, because when I bought this, it said in the description on Amazon that it included the extra tracks that are on the In God We Trust Inc. LP, or not LP, but EP, which has 2 specific songs on it that are like 2 of my favorite Dead Kennedy songs, Nazi Punks Fuck Off, and We've Got a Bigger Problem Now. I really love both of those songs, and I expected them to be on this record, but when I received it, they weren't on there. But considering this is, I only paid like $14 for this, I'm not going to complain too much, considering I like the album as is. There are a lot of really good tracks on it. And, finally, I have actually a tabletop card game to show off. I don't play a lot of tabletop games because I don't have time, and I don't have anybody really to play them with, because my immediate family, they, as far as they go with tabletop games, is playing Monopoly or something like that. They don't do complicated stuff with dice and cards and characters and stuff like that. But I bought this because it was pretty cheap, and this company is completely independent. They actually screen print the designs on the box themselves. They put the stickers on it. They print the cards themselves. They cut the plastic for the pieces themselves. So they do this all independently, and this is only like $38 with shipping, which is not bad at all. I really appreciate what they do here. But it's Ferox, which is you couldn't tell from the title, and like the adult only X, the horror sticker, Be Kind Rewind. If you couldn't tell, this is a tabletop game based on Italian cannibal films from the 1980s. The title alluding to Cannibal Ferox, which isn't my favorite cannibal film. I think everybody knows what the best cannibal film is. It's Holocaust. But it's a pretty bare bones release. Like, you got all the different pieces for the tribes and everything else. You've got all the different dice. Got all the different dice for the tribes and the camera crew and the film crew. And you got the cards for the natives and the cards for the film crew, and then you got the rule book, which, again, you can tell by how this is, like, ever so slightly off, that this is done completely by hand. It's a labor of love, and I respect them for making it. And I'm going to have to bust this out eventually and play it, because I haven't gotten the chance to play it yet, and I've been really wanting to, because it seems like a really fun game. And it's inspired by one of my favorite genres of exploitation films, so it's got to be a win-win. Anyway, guys, that's it for this Blu-ray DVD VHS, CD, vinyl, and tabletop game collection update. I told you this was a big one. Anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews signing off. Peace.